Hello, and welcome to another edition of My Backstage Pass. This is your host, Lee Zimmerman, with my producer and co-host, Billy Hubbard. And today we're really excited to have a very, very special artist with us, Chuck McDermott, a great singer-songwriter with a notable history, who also played many years with the great Jon Stewart, who had an earlier band called Wheat Straw, who knew a lot of very famous and important people. Right, Chuck? I mean, I'm looking at the notes you gave me here, and you have a storied history, my friend. Storied.
Yeah, it's a sad, sad story.
No, it's a happy story. Look what we have you here today. It's new record and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's been a fun ride.
So let's start off talking about the new album, actually an EP, which is called 38 Degrees and Raining. And I guess this is your first record in what, like 4 years or something?
Yes. But before that, I did a record in 2017 called Gin and Rosewater. And before that, my prior record was 34 years earlier.
You're very prodigious, Chuck McDermott. Yeah, very prodigious.
I really compressed the timeline there. But so we started this record at the beginning in January of 2020, and went in the studio and cut like 9 basic tracks, all live, bass, drums, couple guitars, acoustic guitar, my vocal, etc. And then, by end of February, March, the lockdown was upon us. And we had to kind of go to plan B. And what originally in my mind was going to be a full-length CD with a different title song altogether, in fact, sort of began to take a life of its own, working with some of the songs that were near completion that we could finish up by virtually sharing tracks, as everyone has been doing, through this time period and stuff. And I wrote a new one or two, and during that period of time, and it finally came together. And I was very comfortable with the idea of it being an EP, as opposed to, like, Gin and Rosewater was 14 songs.
Right.
And again, I had a lot of backlog going into that. and also I just said, well, hell, we recorded them all. Let's just put them out. But on this one, we have several in the can that only partially completed that we can turn to next. And I felt, to me, the record, when done, really kind of felt like 2020, which was a very, very tough year. And I don't say that to depress anybody, but just, I think, I'm an old folkie at heart, and a big part of what attracts me to music is having it be a bit of a story about what's going on and, around us at the time. So, I'm the least objective person in the world to judge whether or not we were successful in that.
You were successful, Chuck McDermott. I can tell you that. Here's the outsider opinion. It's a wonderful record. And I think what you're referring to before about telling stories is very evident here, because these songs really seem like they were inspired. Like, it wasn't just, there's, a mountain and a river. But these songs seem to really have come from your heart and your soul. There's one song in particular here, I think, that sort of sums everything up, which is the last song on the EP, which is called "Here's the Thing About America." And let's play a couple of a little taste of that, Billy.
As if all those cries were heard, as if color lines were blurred, just don't sit next to me. The working man cannot understand why his world don't feel free. not one shred of dignity.
It's such a beautiful song.
Well, thank you.
And well, let's talk a bit about it, because when you have a title like "Here's the Thing About America," that can be pretty broad. What is that thing about America, or is it that things about America? What are we encapsulating here?
Well, a friend of mine dubbed this as a, a lover's quarrel with one's dearly beloved, and meaning, which I thought captured it in kind of a neat way. But you know, I love this country, and Lee, as you know, I've worked in government on various detours I've taken and stuff like that, and government public service is a big part of my family history, my father's career, and things like this. And I feel, from my vantage point, that we're in a tough period in this country where from whatever angle you look at it, most people feel that we're not at our best behavior with each other. And so that the song, it wrote itself incredibly quickly. I mean, I was, as I am wont to do, just kind of walking around in my music room, banging on a guitar, and kind of got the very simple chord progression. And then that first line just popped in my head. Here's the thing about America. And okay, what you just is what you said. Now what, Chuck? And then when she's as dirty as she's clean, she's as gentle as she's mean, she's everything between sheer hell and fantasy.
I think you're describing my first wife, Chuck. How did you know that? How did you know that? Oh my gosh.
But I'm trying to, especially on the chorus. I mean, I truly empathize with the big part of the country, both kind of both sides of the political divide, who feel, what's going on, man? I mean, I'm playing by all the rules, but I barely have $400 in the bank, and my parents are getting old and sick, and my kids, need to go off to school, and I just lost my health care, and damn, man, it wasn't supposed to be this hard. And so it's just at the end, I'm reaching for the positive, which is the way I'm wired, and just say, let's come together. Let's come to the middle, and let's agree on a plan, and let's do it.
Well,
and that's the thing about America.
Well, you of all people know that, because as you just said, you did serve in government, but you also campaigned for RFK, did you not?
Well, I was a teenager when he ran for president, but
I was 57. I don't want to give away my age, but that's a joke.
You were a tween yourself, but through serendipity, I'm originally from Iowa, and my family moved to Washington D.C. when I was 10, because my dad took a job in the Kennedy administration, and just through ending up at the same Catholic school in suburban Washington, I became buddies with Joe Kennedy, who was the oldest son of Robert Kennedy.
Right.
And we grew up together. So
cool. I
feel very privileged to have known Robert Kennedy as a man and a father of 10 children at the time. And just an amazing person. And then, quite frankly, after 1968, and 63, but when Robert Kennedy was assassinated, that was a huge tragedy for the nation and the world. But, kind of personally, I felt that too. And Martin Luther King, and the country's burning. And I kind of thought at that point, but before those cataclysmic events, that I'd go to college and then maybe, try to work for a senator for a while or something like that. Because that was the environment we were around in Washington, D.C. It's an industry town. But after those two men died, and now you're into the height of the Vietnam War, and then Watergate. I mean, honestly, by 1971, Crosby, Stills, and Nash made a hell of a lot more sense to me than Richard Nixon.
Really?
I wanted nothing to do with politics, and I dropped out of college and formed a band, and that got me off and going.
Was that band that you just mentioned, is that Wheat Straw that you're referring to?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
it
which was, for those of you unaware, just a terrific country rock band. And really, if you look at today's Americana scene, you guys were kind of in the forefront in your own way, were you not?
Well, yeah, and that we all came from, high school bands where we're doing the Beatles, the Kinks, the Doors, whatever. I cut my teeth at the beginning on Kingston Trio and the Weavers and stuff like that before the Beatles hit. But then, so we had all those influences. And DC was, a big Motown and rhythm and blues town. I mean, I saw live during high school Wilson Pickett, James Brown,
Wow.
the Supremes, Four Tops, all that. In addition to Lovin' Spoonful, Left Bank, fill in the blank. Saw the Beatles.
Wow. Really? Wow.
But at Suffolk Downs racetrack in Boston. But so we started the band off, and we were really, the core of us were three singers, and I kind of had the middle range, and there was a guy who sang below me and a guy who could sing above me, and so, like, seriously, the Crosby, Stills, and Nash thing just knocked us out of our saddles, and so we could dust that stuff off as part of the repertoire, and let's say Loggins and Messina or something, and then Buffalo Springfield, of course, and Poco and
Right.
the Byrds,
Yep.
and at this time, after a couple of years of that, I really wanted to just learn an idiom inside out. And again, I'm from Dubuque, Iowa. My grandfather was a farmer. All his ancestors were farmers going back to Ireland. Country music was on the radio when I was growing up. I mean, so was Pat Boone and Bill Haley and Elvis and stuff. But those things were in the air for me. And really, Graham Parsons was my gateway drug into hardcore country.
Yeah.
And I really wanted the band to focus on something. There were a lot of great blues bands in Boston at the time, and I was convincing nobody I was a blues man, but including importantly myself.
Oh boy!
As much as I dug it, and it's, as Billy knows, it's fun to play the blues on guitar. But, it wasn't a great fit. But a true story. The band all lived together at this point. We had no money, but one of the things we did periodically is we'd make a run to a big record store in Boston. We lived on the outskirts of Boston. And we'd walk out with maybe 20 LPs.
Wow.
And
Well, you did have some money. That was a bit of an investment, wasn't it?
Well, they were $5 a piece, but yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
But
right.
How else are you going to learn anything?
Well,
there was
that's
no
true.
Napster, no, nothing. And
Cool.
and it might be, Johnny Otis show live at Monterey Pop, and I mean, it'd be all over the place. But I started throwing in Hank Williams' greatest hits, Merle Haggard's greatest hits. Again, I heard about Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys and the Louvin Brothers, and as this was beginning, one day several of us went to a matinee movie to see the flick Five Easy Pieces.
Oh yeah.
Which had a great soundtrack in it. One of which was Tammy Wynette singing "Stand by Your Man." And
Yeah.
it got reprised several times, and it just, like, my mixture must have been just right, but it just pinned me to my seat. Her laser beam voice.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
the next time
That was the
we got
same
a
way.
Tammy, Wynette greatest hits album. And so, I stacked, as you could, several LPs on the spindle and let them drop on top of each other. But, Hank Williams, Tammy Wynette, mid 60s, Merle Haggard. And I just said, okay, this is it. I know what I'm doing. I don't know what any of the rest of you guys are going to do, but this is what I'm going to do.
Can I toss in a quick impression? Just a little nostalgia here for you, Chuck.
Yes,
The
sir.
great Jack Nicholson. A line from that film that went something like, "Put it between your knees and press."
We've been wanting to use that button for a long time.
We have been wanting to use that.
Oh, sorry. Look at that. It's trying to go again. That was so good.
Sorry. Sorry. A little bit of levity here. I'm sorry.
How about the Venusians have been contacting people in all walks of life?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Around the
remember that
campfire.
line too. Yeah.
Anyway, so we started to, I started to just introduce, some of these tunes into our set list, and then there was literally a little country joint about a half mile from where I now was living, outside of Boston, and they had, these 4 or 5 beat bands that were, the Wheeling Jamboree guys and stuff like that, and pompadour hairdos and snazzy uniforms and stuff, and which was just like, for me, it was like catching muddy waters or something in terms of authenticity. And I talked the club owner into giving us like a Wednesday night and we had hair down to our shoulders, and
right.
I had this droopy red mustache, and he said, yeah, okay, but you gotta have uniforms.
I think you're describing a league. Oh no,
yeah,
kind of.
Exactly right.
Sorry, I don't have the droopy red mustache, but I have a droopy gray beard. Well,
You still got that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Going. Yeah.
All right.
But so we figured out we could each summon up a white shirt and a pair of black jeans or something. But we went into it was called the Turtle Lounge, which was pretty
Lounge.
Yeah. And the deal there was people, they had a regular crowd came. I think it was Wednesday through Saturday they had music, and they, from the first song, they'd fill the dance floor, like country audiences often do. And we're setting up, and these folks were checking us out and thought we were Venusians contacting people from all walks of life. And we go into like the first song, which was, probably the Return of the Grievous Angel or something like that, from Grandfather. And nothing. Nobody got up. No, there might have been a smattering of applause. I mean, they just stared at us. So then we went into, another couple tunes. And it was like this. Then a guy walks up and he hands me this napkin with a song title written on it. I go, "Oh, we don't know that one, but next time we're back, we'll have that one." And it finally started to warm up. I think they, were drinking away their misery and finally decided to get up and had a pretty good time. And the guy invited us back for the next week. He said, "You keep coming on Wednesday nights."
What was the song that was requested?
Oh, it would have been like Green Grass at Home or something,
Oh, that's a lovely choice.
It is.
I'll
So then,
I'll still cover that song sometimes.
Have you?
oh yeah, it's a great
Have you?
tune.
I still love it.
All right, it's got Billy's endorsement.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Good taste. And all the artists you've been naming, I'm sitting here like, yeah, those are.
Oh yeah, I mean, so I ran out and got one of these like the country music's 20 greatest hits, LPs, compilation thing. So the next week we came back, we had 15 songs. We had Green Grass at Home and Detroit City and Break My Mind and various things, and we just keep adding to it, and we had now a whole alternative repertoire of country music and the Hank stuff and all that. But so we could still do the college gigs on the weekends, and stuff, which were good paying, and play some of the rock clubs in Boston that we'd been playing before. But we still had this foot in the country music thing. And then it started to catch on, kind of Waylon and Willie and the Austin thing, Jerry Jeff.
Yeah.
And college students in Boston. There were some from all over the country, so there was a little club in Cambridge that started featuring a couple of us, long-haired guys who were playing just country. And it started to draw country music fans, college kids though. And then when it kind of exploded, especially with Waylon Willie the Outlaw thing, there were like 4 or 5 of us bands. We were ready to go. We weren't hopping on some trains just starting to leave the
No,
station.
that's why I said you were at the forefront. You were at the forefront of all this stuff.
Yeah, which was a great lesson in life, which is you can't chase a trend.
You can't chase a what? You can't chase
a trend.
Oh, can't chase.
You're going to be late. I mean,
thought you said
there's times when there's second mover advantage.
Yes. You can't chase a trend.
Okay.
But I think as an artist, if you're really trying to, kind of plumb your own innards, you just got to do what speaks to you and you hope for the best.
You reminded me, my wife and I Sarah, we were just talking this week, and she was talking about how, where are all these great artists you've been talking about it. She said, where are they today? Why is nothing happening? I said, well, back then we didn't know it was special. We just knew we liked it. So sometimes you don't really appreciate it till you get beyond it. So hopefully, so it's older guys. I guess I'm an older guy too. We got to keep it. Oh, what's it? Oh.
That's I'm sorry. You deserve a round of applause for that. Oh, too much. We don't want to keep it going.
That's okay.
But that's very philosophical of you, Billy. So had to interject a little bit of.
You're rubbing off on me, Lacey. I'm trying to.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I can edit all that out, but I'll wait and make sure it sounded good for me.
It did sound good.
Yeah. It sounded good to me.
Yeah.
But so that the We Straw train started to kind of take off. We made a first record, very inexpensively, 4-track, recording live on a 4-track deck. And we put it out, and I'd actually disbanded the band. This would have been like 1984. 1974. And I had an old van and did the old, hopped in with my girlfriend and we drove around the country and stuff and came back home. And it got put out on this tiny little label based out of here. But it kind of got some critical, critics paying attention to it. A guy named Robert Christgau from Village Voice wrote this pretty glowing review.
Wow.
And he gave me a B+. He rated the records.
That's not bad, B+.
From him.
Not bad at all.
Right. And then my theory is that gave other music writers at the time, especially the ones back in Boston, permission to say nice things about the record.
That's how we writers are. We follow the leader.
Yeah, right. You follow the trend.
Cool.
You
follow the trend. Very good. You brought that back, Chuck. Thank you. Very good.
But so when I got back to Boston, the 2 guys who had kind of released the first one said, "Well, if you put the band back together, we'll do a second one." So I said, "Fine, great, let's do it." So we did a second one, and that got reviewed in Rolling Stone.
Wow.
And which was a huge thing. It's still huge now, but I mean, that was a big,
back then for sure.
Deal. And because we were like nobodies.
Wow.
And then that opened up a whole bunch of doors. So now we're touring from Montreal to New Orleans, and on the East Coast, and played Nashville several times. A place called the Old Time Pick and Parlor, and then the other thing that was happening was the Lone Star Cafe in New York.
Oh yeah,
which is now legendary. But we were one of the first bands when they threw open the doors to play there, and we were very much regulars, and it was just an insane scene. It turned into the coolest place in Manhattan to go. I mean, the cast of Saturday Night Live would come in after the show.
Unbelievable.
And Belushi and Aykroyd would
wow, now that is cool.
And there's Andy Warhol. Oh, there's Kurt Vonnegut. My God,
Wow.
there's Dennis Hopper.
Wow.
And
Wow.
there's Johnny Paycheck right in front of the fucking stage.
Dang. What a cool place
Stoned
to
out
be
of
back
his
then.
mind.
I would be a little starstruck there, if, you know.
Johnny and June came one night,
Really?
sat right right at the table, right at the edge of the balcony, looking down on us. And
Willie
I got to,
Nelson? I see an
Willie
article.
sat
Willie?
in. Willie sat in with us. Yeah,
Wow.
he was doing Saturday Night Live, and on the Friday night before, he came in just by himself.
Dang.
No entourage, no nothing. And you know, and I said to him, "Would you like to get up and play?" He goes, "Sure." And he played for like an hour.
Wow.
And everybody's passing him shots and Lone Star beers.
Shots and Lone Star beer or something else.
Yeah,
Chuck
well, that might have
McDermott.
happened elsewhere, but
Oh,
not
okay.
on stage.
Okay.
But and then the next night after his show, he and his whole band came in, Jody Payne and all those guys, and Mickey Raphael, and the whole Saturday Night Live cast again. And that night there was kind of a big jam and stuff. But so that was terribly exciting. And I had a manager by then who got a lot of the A&R guys, your old field, Lee, to come down. You know, they were New York based. And the place would be hopping and, you know, and they go, "Man, this is great. Next time you hear it, I need to get my counterpart from Nashville up." And they would. So the next time he'd have his counterpart, which was, you know, kind of a guy with a pompadour and a wide white belt and white, you know, Beatle boots on.
It's a great look.
It is.
I fashioned myself after that look for a while.
You know, and here we are, you know, this triple contradiction in terms, a long-haired country band from Boston, right? And it never really clicked we just couldn't get signed. So I decided eventually that I was going to try something else, and that's what got me moving to California.
Is that where you met John? John Stewart?
Yeah, that's where I met John.
Because you spent a lot of time with John Stewart, made some very memorable music with him. And for those of you who aren't familiar with John Stewart, you got to get on John Stewart. It's not the guy on TV, the Jon Stewart. This is John Stewart, who wrote the song Daydream Believer for the Monkees, who had a hit of his own with the song Gold, which Buckingham and Nicks backed him up. But beyond that, just an amazingly great singer and songwriter. And Chuck, you witnessed all that and partaked in that for a good part of his career, did you not?
Yeah, we became we became very close collaborators. I mean, we toured as a duo for about 5 years.
Wow.
And but that was just one of the most one of the great blessings you can have in a lifetime. One, he was just an incredibly great guy, and just brilliant, and smart, and thoughtful, and original, and unique. And he was also that archetypical true artist. I mean, John could never find his car keys, but he could write 3 killer songs in an afternoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just where his head was always in that space, you know? And so that, just to be around that was inspiring. And then, I mean, as a lyricist, he is really, he's underappreciated, I would argue, but not by his peers. I mean, ask Lucinda Williams or Steve Earle or, you know, a lot of folks like that about John Stewart's songwriting. And Roseanne Cash. I mean, she had a #1 country hit with Runaway Train, which was his song.
Which he wrote, Yeah,
and they were very, very close. So, and then, you know, I sat in the studio with him. You know, it was really just him and me and an engineer. And to see his creative process there. And then we toured it at first with a full band, and then he just kind of dropped him. And it was the two of us. We were the world's loudest folk duo, I think, there for a while.
I thought you, I don't know who your duet partner, I thought you took that title.
The loudest what now?
The largest folk, the loudest.
The loudest folk duo.
Loudest folk duo.
It should be a Grammy category.
There should be for that. There should be.
Yes. Don't ever let the guitarist in charge of the sound system when you're young, because you won't hear the vocalist.
Yeah, right, exactly. But that period was just so incredibly wonderful. I mean, working with John and seeing that, and then John's peer group was, Lindsey Buckingham was this huge Kingston Trio fan.
And John was in Kingston Trio, yeah.
Yeah, and he says, that right hand picking technique that Lindsey uses, no picks, he developed that as a kid, playing along with John Stewart's banjo parts on Kingston Trio records. Cool. It's kind of a frailing style picking. Yeah. These downstrokes with his fingernails and all this stuff. And so when they met, Lindsey was like, kind of doing the "I'm not worthy" to John, and Fleetwood Mac was ginormous by we're at the height of that, and that's when Lindsey agreed to produce the album that had the song "Gold" on it, and Stevie Nicks sang on it with him, and as a way to kind of pay back all that he felt he'd gotten by way of inspiration from John. But so they'd come in the studio, one day I'm doing backup vocals, and on one side of me was Lindsey Buckingham, and the other side was Linda Ronstadt.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, and I was, I just come from playing dive bars in Boston. This is so bad. Yeah. But and then we when we were touring, which we did a lot. It was a great combination with another like headline artist, because we had minimal equipment requirements, and John still sold tickets. I mean, he was, he added to the bill.
Right.
So we did a lot of dates with Bonnie Raitt and John Prine and Roger McGuinn and Leo Kottke. So, you're hanging backstage and, you hear all the stories being swapped, and, it was just pretty fabulous.
What a crazy time. I was thinking about your song. I was sitting here looking at the title and thinking about America. I just think, the timing of how you're born in the world, and how you often think, man, you could have been born somewhere terrible where life was awful, but to be born at, in your situation there and end up the geographical location, and what a cool thing to be grateful for.
Yeah. And so much of that, as you're saying, Billy, is blind luck. I mean, you don't get to choose who you're born to or where you're born or anything like that.
That's true.
But
yeah, such a cool time.
Yeah. It was great.
So how long? What was your expanse of time with John? What when to when?
Full time, it was about 5 years. It was kind of 79 to 84. And then by now, I was married. We were expecting our first kid, and I couldn't support a family, and I ended up, taking some day jobs that, in and of themselves, over time, became really rewarding, fascinating things. But it meant I had to leave LA and leave John. But I still, for the next, at least next 10 years, was on every record he did.
Wow, really?
At least as a vocalist. And and when he'd come through, it was either Boston or Washington, which were the two places I was migrating between. I'd do the gig with him, we just pick up where we left off. And, he was my youngest child's godfather. And we were best friends until he died.
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah.
I remember I met him. I think I told you about this, Chuck. I met him when he was opening up. It's in Miami, Bayfront Park, opening up for Neil Young and the Harvest whatever that.
Oh, Harvest Moon.
Yes.
Tour?
Were you
Yeah.
there for that? Were you at
No,
that gig?
no, I
Okay.
was not.
Well, I remember going up to Jon Stewart. I was a huge fan, and I went up to him and I said, Mr. Stewart, I'm just a huge fan of yours, but I bet you hear that all the time. And his reply was, no, I don't actually. So I knew at that point he was unappreciated, and I still think that he's unappreciated, and more people should know his music. Wonderful, wonderful albums that he.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck, I was going to ask you, the circling around back to your, I know what it's like. I had 2 daughters when we were young, and so as far as my own personal, playing, I had to circle back to some degree. And how long was it now, in your case, when you circled back to, getting more into like your albums you're doing now?
A long time. It was like literally 34 years.
Unbelievable. That's a lifetime.
I think that's about me too.
Really?
I mean, as far as me personally, my playing, I'm just getting out and playing and stuff. But,
Yeah.
Well, you guys really know a thing or two about momentum.
Well, it's just the
Not.
cool thing is you can't, it's like a fire you can't put out. You just you get old. All you're waiting for is time.
Yeah. Well, and I bet this is true for you, Billy. But in my case, no matter what was going on or what town I was living in at the time or whatever, how busy I was, or I always was able to throw together like a little 4-piece band.
Right. Yeah.
It maybe play once every 2 or 3 months, but that was enough.
Yeah.
You
can't
for
lay it
that.
all the way down. That's for true.
Right. And I kept on writing songs. I mean, it wasn't, several a month. It was more like maybe several a year,
Right.
but just, it was never out of my mind. In my head, I was still a musician. I just was doing some of these other
That's
things.
cool. I think there's probably more people like us than we know, really.
Yeah.
Well, life gets in the way.
know a
Life
lot
gets
of
in
them,
the
so.
way sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I guess in 2017, though, Chuck, everything sort of culminated with the release of that album.
Yes.
Obviously, a long time in coming, but I guess at that point, you kind of knew that the path was clear and this is what you're going to do going forward. Is that not
Right.
correct? Yeah.
It is. I was kind of done with the day job phase, and my kids were grown, and I got my time back. I kind of got my life back.
Yeah. The honorable.
And,
one more thing I was going to say, the honorable thing to do is what you did, and what because I have seen on the bad side people that
Neglect their families.
Yeah, just
and,
go the other way. But I'm sorry, I didn't. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so I kind of could take a deep breath and take stock, and I was living back here in Boston by now, and there's a very rich roots music scene here. There's some really good songwriters. We have Berklee College of Music, who's known for its jazz, programs, but
Mhm.
they have this very vibrant roots music program. I mean, Molly Tuttle, all kinds of people have come through the Berklee Roots Music program. So you got these young hotshots who are really great. And then you got these guys, maybe 50, 60. I'm 70 now, but who've been doing it all the way since. And they all have had the road experience, with Mary Chapin Carpenter or Roseanne, or, and we need to talk about this drummer I work with now before we're done real quickly. But
very famous
there's
drummer
this-
you got on this record. Yeah.
there's just this supply of great players, and you can get them for club gigs if they're free, and you can certainly get them for a studio date. And so the Gin and Rosewater record came together just kind of magically, I thought. I was working with a true producer for the first time, a guy named Lauren Entris, who had produced Laurie McKenna and a fellow from up here named Mark Corelli, who's got a strong thing going.
He's
great writer,
Yeah, Morelli. Yeah, yeah.
And kind of an Americana producer. And his thing was, we're going to pick the right musicians, and all we're going to give them is voice guitar demos. Because I had demos done at home with harmony parts and multiple guitars or bass and all this stuff. But said no, strip down. They got to hear. They get superimpose their own, and they got to hear it their own way. And so we go in the studio, and by like the second run through, these guys, non-verbally, amongst themselves, are cooking up these arrangements that are just like freaky. And I know kind of the Nashville A-Team, thing, 3 songs in 3 hours, and the head arrangements and stuff, which worked and made a lot of great records. But this it was just amazing for me, having had these songs in my head for a long time, to see them come to life like that. So then we got her done. We put it out. The wheat straw continues to be a gift that keeps on giving. That they're not all dead yet. All the people.
Excellent. Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Right. And so I could get back, in the nice listening room clubs and stuff like that. And several of the guys on that record became my performing band as well. And so that's what we've been doing leading up to going back into the studio in January of 2020. And then, that's where we started this. Then was the lockdown.
Well, you mentioned your drummer. You have some excellent people on this new EP. Who are some of the players that you have helping out here? Yeah,
so the drummer on every cut on Gin and Rosewater and every cut on this, and he also produced 38 Degrees and Raining, is a man named Marco Giovino.
Yes.
And Marco, he's from Massachusetts and moved back here when he and his wife had a couple young girls. But he was in Nashville, for a dozen years, and became Buddy Miller's kind of right hand drummer. And so he did the whole Band of Joy thing with Robert Plant with Buddy, and a ton of Nashville session work. Emmylou, Rodney Crowell, Dolly Parton, Norah Jones, all that stuff. And prior to that, he was music director for none other than Tom Jones for 6 years.
Tom Jones. I just interviewed Tom Jones.
Yeah, who's a
great
monster.
Guy.
I think you're talking about Green Green Grass at Home. I think that's the one I got on my playlist.
A very poignant, poignant song, Tom Jones.
What a set of pipes, right?
Wonderful, and still is. I mean, his new album is terrific. His last several albums produced with Ethan Johns, Glenn Johns' son. Great records,
Right. But so Marco is he's a graduate of Berklee College of Music too, but his real roots are down near you guys. It's Memphis, Muscle Shoals, New Orleans, and very much like another drummer named Jay Belarus, if you know that name.
Yeah.
Who T-Bone Burnett uses almost all the time.
Yeah, this guy's on 1 million albums. That Jay Belarus. Yeah.
And both Jay Belarus and Marco approached the drum kit not like a trap set, hi-hat, snare, and the kick thing and plenty of cymbals. He barely touches his cymbals. It's tom-toms. He's throwing sheepskins over the snare drum. He makes his own maracas with baby teeth and
with baby teeth
inside them.
That sounds a little ominous. A little ominous.
It's a great tone. On one of the songs on 38 Degrees, Billy, he found the button.
Yeah, I'm playing with these, Chuck. You're on the guinea pig. He found the damn buttons. Yeah,
I only showed him 4 buttons, and now I'm going to have to get control.
More buttons. Yeah, it's going to slap my hand. But, anyway, sorry.
But on the new EP, 38 Degrees and Raining, there's a song called On a Night Like This. And there's this percussive thing. It's not a cowbell. It's not you don't know what it is. It's a metal hospital bedpan.
I'm tempted to play the sound effect again with that. Okay, I won't. I won't. I'll hold back.
That happens to be
a bedpan,
more or less in the key of G, which is the key that song is in.
Now, how would you happen to have one in the studio? Does he bring his own bedpan?
Well, we recorded in his home studio.
I would be a little nervous. Do you need that? We can hold off on that. We can overdub the bedpan later if you need it now.
No.
Got a spruce top and a rose wood back.
Yeah. But so he really collaborating with Marco. It's akin to having met John Stewart and worked with John, but in a different way. It's more about groove and texture and stuff like that. And that's one of the things, I mean, I think we got there on Gin and Rosewater, but I think really on 38 Degrees and Raining, pretty much every song has a very distinct personality and vibe to it. And it kind of takes you to some other geography or something like that. And a huge amount of the credit for that goes to Marco in selecting the musicians, several of which who were on the prior record, but some additional ones. So we had Luther Dickinson on it.
Oh yeah,
from the North Mississippi All Stars.
Big time.
It was just one of the greats of all time. We had a song. I took the lyrics of an old gospel song called "We Will Walk Through the Streets of the City" and rewrote them to take a different theme. And we had done the basics on that and stuff. And I said to Marco, "Man, would it be cool to have the McCrary sisters sing on this or what?" And he goes, "You want me to call Regina?"
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So we called Regina and they said, sure.
Cool.
And this was during lockdown. So they did go into a small studio there in Nashville and record it. And I'm participating on FaceTime on my phone.
Well, I saw the video. I think it's on your website or something. I saw a little video.
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
Is there a clip? Yeah.
My wife made those videos. First crack at making videos, yeah. So we were lucky to get them on there. On the prior one, I'm probably 30 some odd years ago, I became friends with Stephen Stills through politics.
Wow.
He's a radical Democrat. And, but we started playing music. You know, he's sat in at gigs I've done, and
wow,
I've done gigs where he's sat in, and
yeah.
So I asked him if he'd play a song. He'd play on one of the tunes on Gin and Rosewater, a song called "People Are Weak," which he did, which was great. And so, yeah, I'm blessed by the generosity of those folks.
Oh man,
but
he's talking about the Marco, and I was thinking about, I don't know if it's just me, but I can just be, if I can have my guitar just goofing around, down in my little band cave, and if I just turn on this little crummy tempo thing I got, it does something to my brain, and it just makes me play different, or it makes me start hear different.
That explains a lot, Billy. It does something different. That really explains a lot. The mystery has been resolved, folks. We know.
So this is my personal theory: is that I think something about it maybe taps into my Neanderthal, or not just me, but everybody's our DNA. If you hear some kind of rhythm, or and like he sounds, Marco is unique, so that's going to bring out something different, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I personally
really
tap on a lot of bedpans, and I guess that's, but it just makes me want to pee. Oh, can we say that? I'm sorry.
We can say
that was inappropriate.
Yeah. I'm not even going to touch that.
Yeah, don't. I didn't even hit a button. I was too embarrassed.
I did want to say though that I was listening to some of your. I personally don't do the Apple streaming, some of the streaming services, just because I protest that they get ripped off. So I just buy everything that I can buy. I don't do that. So, but anyway, I was listening on Apple Music to some of your album. I'm sorry, I forgot the name. It was in 2017 or so. It looked like
Gin and Rosewater.
Yeah, Gin and
the last
Rosewater.
one, yeah.
Anyway, that was, and I didn't really know, how it is. Like so much music, you can't. It's such a refreshing to find somebody new, and it's always challenging. I remember back in the old days, I'd go and just when CDs came out, some stores would have little headphones. I'd go in there for a couple of hours and try to find something new. So anyway, it's nice when somebody like Lee can say, "Hey, check this guy out." So anyway, I was listening, and man, the combination of your, I guess I described soothing vocals and the cool guitar work, which and of course the lyrics. Well, that just kind of checked all the boxes for me, so I kind of became a fan. So
wow,
I am starting to sound like you, Lee. That's kind of wordsmith stuff, like you would.
Yeah, but I'm kind of touched, Billy, at your admiration. Chuck, I guarantee right now he is wiping tears from his eyes.
Yes.
A little emotional, a little choked up. Chuck is Chuck. Oh, choke is, never mind.
Yeah.
No, it is hard to find. I mean, and, if you find someone you respect and you say, "Hey, check this artist out," like Lee, of course, is good at that. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I'm just saying, I'm your fan.
Well, thank you.
New fan.
I really appreciate that. Supply outstrips demand.
Yeah.
Comes to my music.
You are very pithy, Chuck McDermott. You come up with these great expressions there.
Apple Music's good. I saw sometimes they sell out. You got to be sure to get to buy those.
Really?
Right. Right.
I'm just kidding, Lee.
No.
So what's next, Chuck? You were saying earlier, I guess when we were off the air, that you have some gigs coming up, and you plan to be at the Americana Fest and at Folk Alliance. So,
yep,
that's great. We'll be able to see you there.
That's great. We're again just before the pandemic hit. A wonderful guy up here in Boston, an important part of the arts community, named Joe Spalding, who is the CEO of these two iconic theaters here, the Wang Theater and the Schubert. It initiated this effort to create a Folk Americana Roots Music Hall of Fame here in Boston, and he enlisted me in that effort with him and others, and we were really kind of getting up ahead of steam before the pandemic hit and stuff, but that's starting to gear back up. And so within this beautiful 125-year-old fully restored theater in Boston will be exhibits on the type of people you'd imagine who would be in a Hall of Fame like that. And we had just started what was to be a continuing concert series of people like this, and we had a show with Rodney Crowell, Randy Clark, the North Mississippi All-Stars, and Marco and I put together a house band that were some of the same guys playing on the record, but like through Marco's Rolodex, a guy named Charlie Giordino on organ and keyboards and accordion, and he's the most recent member of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band.
Wow, cool.
And a guy named Russ Paul, who's a session guy who works with Dan Auerbach and all this other kind of stuff. So really great house band, and had this fabulous show. And then we were working on Buddy Miller and Roseanne Cash and other people for follow-ups, so we'll be gearing that back up. So that'll be fun because I get to MC these shows.
Wow.
And be in the house band. And so, I got to sing Leaving Louisiana in the Broad Daylight with Rodney Crowell.
Oh, man, what a great song.
Hello.
That's excellent.
And so then again, I have like 4 or 5 songs already and, halfway completed that we could go back to. Marco and I are talking about me doing a country album. I've got a whole bunch of these ballad type songs. The perhaps overly sensitive singer-songwriter side that normally you try to just sprinkle in, so you can get away with it. But I'm contemplating just doing an EP or something of just 6 or 7 of those.
I can send you some. I can send you some lyrics that are plucked from my life and very sad and heartbroken and depressing,
God.
and will drive people to jump off a building if they. But I'm making the offer.
Folks are
I'm
looking
making the
for.
offer.
I think that's what the fans want.
Yeah, well, you said hardcore country. I'm sure Billy too, because Billy is a singer and songwriter, and he has his tears and his beers, right?
Yeah. I do.
Send me your saddest songs, Billy.
I had some earlier.
I think
I had one ago. I was crying about something. You said,
what?
You had me crying about something. Maybe it was laughing.
No, he's really choking up here. I don't know what it was that I said.
I think it's the forest fires.
Yeah,
residue from smoke.
Maybe so. So before we go, let's where can people find you, Chuck? Where can people get the new album?
Thank you.
And
No, thank you for that. So I have a website, which is my name. It's chuckmcdermott.com. And from there, even if we're Billy Hubbard or anybody, you can purchase a physical copy of either my recent records through there. There's a lot of info on there. My wife Ann, who's just an incredible human, but she's prodded me to sort of blog a bit about the songs and the process and stuff like that. So if people really can't sleep, there's some of that on there. And
you might want to spell your last name. See, just because I left the T off and I had earlier, but it was my fault.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's Chuck DERMOTT, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
.com.
Exactly. So so there's that, and that will have information on any gig dates and tour dates and stuff like that. And from that too, if when you land on the website, a thing will pop up saying, you sign up for the newsletter. And so about once a month we send something out talking about what's been going on, musically and whatnot. And we tell little personal stories, and then we try to, at the end, plug something else, some other people's
maybe
music,
like this podcast. Maybe
this podcast
you're gonna have to plug this anyway. Billy will get you the info, and
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We will do that.
And I'll share your link on our site too when we publish this.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Do that.
Excellent.
But we just, in the most recent one, you might have seen this, Lee, because you do get it, but I plugged a podcast called Cocaine and Rhinestones.
Yeah.
Are you guys aware of that?
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
You got to check that out. It's David Allan Coe's son.
Really?
36-year-old.
Oh, my God.
Brilliant young guy. But it's the history of country music. It's really, Billy, you'd love
cool.
it.
It's not competition with my book, is it, Chuck? Because
No.
I have.
He doesn't
what
ever
is
use
that
the word
book of
Americana.
mine?
Maybe it's like Tales
You
from the
never-
Tour Bus. Now, if y'all saw that, you got to see that, Lee. I don't know. And Chuck, have you?
Right.
It's a series.
Billy,
Oh,
that was
is
your
that a
opening to
film?
plug my book,
No,
and it's falling apart here.
It's a series called Tales from the Tour Bus.
Not
forgot.
plug that. Plug my book here.
I can't hear you, Lee. Something's going on with the audio. But yeah, Tales from the Tour Bus.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't have any interest in it, but that's the funniest stuff ever. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll check that out. But
I'll find it on
anyway,
YouTube. I
this
think
is
you
good.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But so that's how you can. That's the best way to find out what I'm up to.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sorry
yeah.
to blabber on and on.
We enjoyed it. Yeah. Come down to Tennessee. We'll do it again or something.
He's going to be in Nashville. I'm trying to get him to come over to East Tennessee, but hopefully we'll see him.
Yeah, this is the right side, not the wrong side.
This is the
East Tennessee
side of the Smokies.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, guys, I know Lee's got something coming up here at 6, and so we're going to blame it on Lee, so we're going to have to go ahead and phase
I'll
out
let you
here.
jump.
But anyway.
Well, let me know when you think you'll be airing it, and
Yeah,
we'll
share.
pump it on our social media and stuff like that, of course. And
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, man, for sure. Yeah,
it's really a pleasure.
yeah, and hang
Thank
on to
you.
it. Don't hang up yet. We're
Don't
going to
hang
sign
up
out
yet.
here, and anyway, so let me get anyway.
Okay.
Big thanks to you, Chuck. I say you, Chuck. That sounds funny. Chuck DeMont. And of course, my host here, Lee Zimmerman. And by the way, here you go, Lee. Check out Lee's book, Americana Music Voices, Visionaries and Pioneers of Modern Sound.
Thank
Now
you.
available on Amazon.
They're
So
waiting all broadcast.
please
for
like,
that
share, and
one.
subscribe to this podcast. And we'll see y'all next time. Happy trails.
Thanks, Billy.